They struck a human outpost. Minutes later, their homeworld was annihilated. The Krell Dominion ruled a huge part of the galaxy with iron claws and buzzing wings. Their ships looked like giant beetles covered in black armor and sharp spikes. They had taken many worlds from weaker races. The Krell never asked. They just attacked, crushed, and claimed. Every species learned to fear the sound of their engines in the dark. Epsilon Verge was a small human place far from the busy star lanes. It sat on the edge of known space like a lonely candle. 9,000 people lived and worked there. Most were scientists who studied strange rocks and gases. A few soldiers guarded the place with light guns and 2 small ships. The outpost had tall metal towers for sending messages, and big tanks full of fuel for passing ships. Humans built it quietly many years ago. They did not shout about it. They just worked. War Master Vexthar led the Krell attack fleet. He stood tall on the bridge of his flagship. His shells shone under red lights. His many eyes glowed with hunger. The fleet had 47 big cruisers. Hundreds of small fighters flew around them like angry insects. Behind came the fat lander ships, ready to drop troops. Vexthar looked at the view screen and saw the tiny human station. He clicked his mandibles in amusement. "These humans are soft prey," he said to his officers. "They hide behind words and papers. They will run when we show strength. The Dominion needs the rare metals in this system. We take them now. No talk, no mercy." The Krell ships jumped out of faster-than-light travel right at the edge of the system. Alarms screamed on the human outpost. Captain Elena Voss stood in the control room. She was a tall woman with short black hair and calm green eyes. She looked at the screens and saw the enemy fleet appear. Her people froze for 1 second. Then they moved fast. "Open a channel," she said. A young officer pressed buttons. The screen lit up with the face of Vexthar, stared down at her like she was food. "Humans of Epsilon Verge," the War Master said in rough translated words. "This system belongs to the Krell Dominion. Leave now or die. Your choice ends in 1 minute." Captain Voss kept her voice steady. "We ask for talks," she said. "The Galactic Council rules say new contacts must have words first. We can share this place. There is enough for all." Vexthar laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. "Talks," he repeated. "You think words stop claws? We see your weak guns, your tiny ships. You are nothing. The bombardment starts now." The channel closed. Elena turned to her team. "Prepare defense," she said. "Launch the escape pods for non-fighters. Send the burst signal. Lock the lower levels. Everyone who can fight, stay." The Krell fleet moved in like a storm. Energy beams shot from the big cruisers. They hit the outer towers first. Metal melted and sparks flew. The 2 human corvettes tried to fight. They fired missiles and lasers. One corvette died fast. The other twisted and dodged, but took heavy hits. It exploded in a bright ball of fire. Fighters swarmed the station. They tore holes in the hulls. Krell troops jumped from landers. They wore heavy armor and carried guns that spat blue fire. Humans fought back in corridors and labs. They used rifles and grenades. Some hid in vents and struck from shadows. Many died fast. Blood painted the white walls. Captain Voss led a small group in the central core. They held a strong room with thick doors. Krell soldiers banged on the metal and burned through with torches. Elena spoke to her people one last time. "Keep the data safe," she said. The burst went out. "They will come." A big explosion rocked the station. The power failed. Lights went dark. Air hissed from broken pipes. Krell troops poured in. They found Elena and her last fighters. She stood with a pistol in each hand. She shot until her clips ran dry. A Krell blade took her down. She fell without a sound. The fighting ended in less than 20 minutes. Most humans lay dead. The outpost burned. Black smoke rose into space. Krell soldiers cheered. They waved their claws and sang victory songs. War Master Vexthar watched from his ship. He felt proud. This was easy. This was nothing. He sent the battle recording to every Krell world. The pictures showed broken human bodies and ruined halls. He spoke over the images. "See how we crush the soft ones," he said. "Let all races learn fear. Let them know the Dominion takes what it wants." No one in the Krell fleet saw the small thing that happened just before the main array died. A hidden antenna deep in the hull sent one short burst. It traveled fast on a secret path. No voice, no picture, just 3 words and a code from the dead captain. "Outpost fallen. Retaliate." The message crossed the long dark between stars. It moved quiet and invisible. No Krell ship caught it. No sensor blinked. The humans had built that system long ago for days like this. They hoped it would never wake. To Earth. On the Krell ships, the soldiers cleaned their blades. They ate victory meat and drank strong liquor. They talked about the next world to take. Vexthar sat in his chair and dreamed of more glory. He did not know that far away a clock had started. A clock that counted minutes, not years. The galaxy turned slowly. Stars burned in silence. The small outpost on the edge became a grave. No birds sang there. No wind moved the ash. Only the cold void watched and waited. The Krell laughed loud. They thought they had won. They thought the story ended here. They were wrong. The answer was already moving. 3 ships left hidden places around Sol. They carried no flags, no bright lights. They moved fast and dark. Their crews read the names on the casualty list. 8,741 souls gone. The crews did not shout. They did not cry. They just worked. The math was simple now. 1 outpost gone, 1 homeworld to balance the scale. They feasted and boasted. They had no idea how short their joy would last. They struck a human outpost. Minutes later, their homeworld was annihilated. The burst message crossed the empty black between stars. It moved faster than light on a hidden path built long ago by human minds. No ship chased it. No scanner saw it. The words inside stayed simple and cold. Outpost fallen. Retaliate. The code matched the dead captain exactly. No doubt. No mistake. It arrived at the Sol defense nexus, deep inside Earth orbit. The nexus hid in a hollowed asteroid, bigger than a city. Lights glowed soft blue inside long halls. Men and women in plain gray uniforms worked at screens. They did not shout when the message hit. They just nodded once and moved. A quiet voice spoke over the room speakers. "Cascade 7 active. All stations confirm." The words came from a machine that never slept. It counted hearts and votes long ago. Now it counted only math. 1 human place gone, 1 Krell world to pay. The old law woke up fast. Admiral Kai Ren stood in the command vault. Butt straight. His hair showed silver lines. His eyes stayed hard. He read the list of names. 8,741 dead. Scientists, cooks, guards, children born on the outpost, all gone. He touched the screen once. His finger left no mark. He spoke low. 1 for 1,000 protocol. Execute now. No delay. The officers around him answered, "Yes, sir," in calm voices. No one asked why. No one begged for time. The math stayed simple. An outpost cost 1 world. That was the rule. Humans said it after the first wars. They hoped no one would test it. The Krell just did. 3 ships waited in secret spots around the sun. The dreadnought Erebus hung at the L3 point behind Earth. It looked like a black arrow, longer than most cities. Thick armor covered every side. Guns hid inside hatches that never opened. The stealth carrier Nyx floated near Jupiter. It bent light around itself so sensors saw nothing. The relativistic kill platform Thanatos drifted far out past Pluto. It carried no crew, only machines. And cold math. Orders reached each ship at the same second. Engines hummed soft. Power flowed to drives that drank dark energy. No flags rose, no horns sounded. The ships just moved. They slid into hyperspace lanes like shadows slipping through cracks. Travel time to Krell space showed 47 minutes for the cruise. Time stretched funny in those tunnels. Minutes felt long, but not forever. On Erebus, Admiral Wren walked the main bridge. Crews sat at stations. They checked weapons and shields. No chatter filled the air. Only quiet clicks and soft beeps. A young officer named Mara looked at the Admiral. She asked one question. "Sir, will we warn them first?" Wren shook his head. "No warning," he said. "They gave none, we give none." He opened a file on his screen. It showed old talks with the Krell. Years ago, humans offered peace. The Krell laughed and burned a colony ship. They called humans weak meat. The file ended with red words, "Never trust claws." The Admiral closed it. He felt no anger. Duty. Nyx carried no big guns. It carried swarms. 3,000 small drones slept in its bays. Each drone held a tiny core of antimatter wrapped in perfect containment. One spark and a city died. The drones woke slow. They tested wings and eyes. They waited, hungry. Thanatos moved different. It flew at high speed already. It pushed small rocks bigger than houses, faster and faster, over many weeks. Ram scoops drank thin gas from space and turned it to thrust. The rocks reached 9/10 light speed. They carried no bombs, just speed and mass, enough to crack a planet open. The platform released them one by one. They flew ahead, silent and unseen. Inside Erebus, a tech named Jonas watched the countdown. 40 minutes left. He thought about his sister. She worked on Epsilon Verge as a biologist. She sent him letters about strange plants that glowed at night. He would never read another one. He pushed the thought down and checked his panel again. All green. The ships talked to each other on tight beams. No one outside heard Admiral Wren sent the final go code. 3 words. Execute Cascade 7. The other captains answered, confirmed. A link closed. On Earth people slept or worked or laughed in streets. They knew nothing of the burst or the ships. Most never would. The government stayed quiet. The news stayed off. The Cascade system worked outside normal rules. It kept the peace by making sure no one wanted war twice. 40 minutes passed slow for the crews. They drank water. They ate protein bars. They wrote short letters to families. Letters that might never send if things went wrong. No one cried. No one ran. The job stayed clear. Admiral Wren stood at the front viewport. He saw stars stretch into lines as hyperspace pulled them forward. He spoke to no one but himself. This is not hate. This is balance. One side breaks the rule, the other side fixes it. He turned back to his chair and sat down. The ships closed on the Krell system now. Minutes away, the Krell homeworld waited, bright and proud. Billions lived there in tall hives and shining cities. They built rings around their planet. They thought no enemy could reach so far. They slept safe under strong shields. They did not know 3 shadows approached. One carried death at light speed. One carried swarms that ate fleets. One carried a voice that would speak last. The countdown hit 10 minutes. The crews took deep breaths. They locked straps. They powered final systems. No turning back now. The math stayed simple. 1 outpost, 1 world. The balance demanded payment. Far away on Krell Prime, lights burned in every tower. Children played in warm air. Merchants sold food and tools. Leaders planned new wars. None felt the cold coming. None heard the quiet hum of machines closing in. The galaxy spun on. Stars watched without words. The answer moved fast now. It carried no mercy, only certainty. The Krell would learn soon what humans meant by retaliation. The ships dropped out of hyperspace, one after another. The trap closed without sound. They struck a human outpost. Minutes later, their homeworld was annihilated. Krell Prime shone bright in the center of its system, like a green and gold jewel. Billions of Krell lived there in tall hive towers that touched the clouds. Wide rings of metal circled the planet, carrying ships, factories, and homes. The sky stayed busy with traffic lanes and defense platforms. Strong shields glowed faint blue over cities, protecting against any attack. The Krell felt safe. No enemy had ever come this deep into their space. They ruled too many worlds. They crushed too many foes. Pride filled every heart. Sensors watched the outer edges of the system. Day and night they scanned for danger. Nothing ever came. The fleets stayed ready in dockyards. Warriors trained in huge arenas. Young Krell learned songs of victory. Leaders met in grand halls and planned more conquests. Life moved smooth and certain. Then the first shadow arrived. Thanatos appeared without warning, far from the star. Dropped from hyperspace at high speed. The platform itself stayed small and dark, but it had already let go of its deadly cargo. 14 impactors flew ahead. Each one looked like a plain rock, the size of a small mountain. They moved at 9/10 the speed of light. No engines glowed. No signals blinked. They stayed cold and silent. Sensors saw nothing until the last few seconds. The first impactor chose the northern landmass. It hit the crust like a hammer from the gods. The speed turned mass into pure energy. The ground split open for hundreds of miles. Fire shot into the sky, higher than any mountain. Shock waves rolled across the continent like endless thunder. Trees burned in an instant. Lakes boiled away. Cities near the strike point vanished in white light. Millions died before they knew what happened. Alarms screamed across Krell Prime. Defense grids lit up too late. The shields tried to stop the next strikes. They stopped energy beams and missiles, but these attackers carried no energy. Just speed and rock. The second impactor struck the eastern sea. It pushed water aside and cracked the ocean floor. Steam clouds rose thick and hot. Tsunamis raced toward the coasts. They drowned hive towers and ports. War Master Vexthar sat on his flagship in high orbit. He watched the view screen with wide eyes. The planet below burned in patches. He shouted orders. "Send all ships! Intercept now! Destroy those things!" His voice cracked for the first time. His officers ran to stations, but no targets showed on screens. The impactors moved too fast. No gun could track them. No missile could catch them. The third strike hit a major hive city. The tower tops shattered like glass. Magma pushed up from deep below, streets filled with lava. Warriors tried to fly away, but wings burned in the heat. Children screamed in the dark. The fourth impactor landed in the south. It woke old volcanoes that had slept for ages. Ash poured into the air and blocked the sun. The sky turned black in minutes. The same moment, Nyx appeared close to the orbital rings. The stealth carrier dropped its cloak and opened bays. 3,000 drones poured out like a cloud of angry metal. Each drone small, fast, and smart. They carried warheads with antimatter sparks. One touch meant death. The drones split into groups. Some flew to the defense platforms, some hunted warships, some dove toward ground bases. Krell fighters launched in panic. They met the swarm and died fast. Drones twisted and dodged. They fired thin beams that cut through armor like paper. Explosions bloomed across the sky. Rings broke apart and fell in burning pieces. Ships tried to run, but drones chased them down. One by one, the Krell Navy vanished in flashes of light. Vexthar gripped his command chair. His mandibles clicked in fear. He opened a channel to the surface. "Evacuate the leaders," he said. "Get the council off-world." But no shuttles lifted. The ports stayed blocked by falling debris. The air grew thick with smoke and poison. Stayed far at the system edge. It watched everything. The admiral stood calm. He pressed one button. A message began to broadcast on every Krell frequency. The words came clear in perfect Krell speech. "You struck a human outpost. We are the answer. This is not vengeance. This is arithmetic." The voice repeated over and over. It filled every speaker in every hive. It echoed in empty streets. It played on broken screens. The Krell who still lived heard it. They felt cold in their shells. They understood too late. The fifth impactor struck the equator. It split a major fault line. The planet groaned like a wounded animal. Earthquakes raced around the globe. Buildings fell by the billions. The sixth hit near the capital. The central hive tower leaned, then collapsed. It buried the Grand Council Hall under tons of stone and fire. The leaders died together, screaming orders that meant nothing now. Drones finished their work. They hunted the last ships. They burned the shipyards. They destroyed the power plants. Lights went out across the world. Darkness spread fast. The air turned hot and thick with ash. Temperatures climbed past what any Krell could stand. The seventh impactor landed in the western plains. It triggered chain reactions. Deep gas pockets exploded. The ground shook again and again. The eighth struck the pole. Ice caps melted in seconds. Floods mixed with lava and made rivers of death. Vexthar watched his home die. He saw the bright cities turn red, then black. His fleet crumbled around him. His own ship took hits from drones. Shields failed. Hulls breached. Air rushed out. He stared at the screen as the final impactors fell. The 9th, 10th, 11th, they kept coming. Each one broke more of the world. The planet did not explode. It suffered slow and sure. It cracked and burned and choked. In 11 minutes the surface became hell. No green remained, only fire ash and glowing cracks. The atmosphere turned to poison. The billions who lived there became memories. The hive stood empty. The rings fell like broken toys. Vexthar sent one last message before his ship died. They were waiting. His voice sounded small and lost. It went out to the surviving Krell ships far away. They heard it and felt fear spread through their fleets. Erebus, Nyx, and Thanatos stayed only long enough to watch the end. Then they turned. They slipped back into hyperspace without a word. The system fell quiet. Only the burning world remained to mark what happened. The galaxy would hear soon. The Krell who survived would tell the tale. They would whisper about the 3 ships that came without warning. They would speak of the voice that called it arithmetic. They would learn what humans meant when they said retaliation. The stars stayed cold. They watched without pity. The balance held now. 1 outpost gone, 1 homeworld paid. The math stayed exact. They struck a human outpost. Minutes later, their homeworld was annihilated. The first impactor struck the northern continent, and the planet screamed. Fire raced outward in a white ring that swallowed forests and cities. The shockwave hit like a wall of iron. It flattened towers and threw vehicles into the sky. Dust and rock flew high enough to block the sun for hours. The ground cracked open, and red lava poured out like blood from a wound. Millions vanished in the first breath of heat. War Master Vexthar clung to his command chair on the flagship bridge. The view screen showed the horror in bright colors. He saw his homeworld twist and burn. His mandibles clicked fast in panic. "Send rescue ships," he shouted. "Launch all shuttles. Get the young ones out." His officers stared at empty controls. No shuttles could lift. The ports lay under falling sky. The air burned too hot for wings to beat. The second impactor followed close. It hit the great eastern ocean and pushed water miles into. The air's steam clouds rose thick and black. They rained acid across the land. The third struck the central plains and woke sleeping volcanoes. Ash shot upward in dark pillars. The sky turned to night in minutes. The temperature climbed past boiling point. Krell shells cracked open from the heat. Bodies cooked where they stood. Drones from Nyx filled the space around the planet. They hunted every ship that tried to flee. Small fighters burst into flame when antimatter sparks touched their hulls. Big cruisers split apart like dry wood. Explosions lit the dark like short-lived stars. The orbital rings broke in many places. Huge pieces fell toward the surface. They struck already ruined cities and made fresh craters. The rings that once carried pride now rained death. Vexthar watched the drone swarm take his last battle group. His flagship shook from near misses. Alarms wailed without stop. Red lights flashed across every panel. He opened a channel to the dying world. "This is War Master Vexthar," said. "All forces regroup at rally point." But no one answered. The rally point no longer existed. The surface glowed red from pole to pole. The fourth impactor landed near the old capital. The ground split wide and swallowed the Grand Palace whole. The council chambers filled with molten rock. Leaders who once planned galactic wars died in silence, their screams lost in the roar of fire. The fifth struck the southern hive belt. It triggered chainquakes that raced around the equator. Towers leaned and fell like cut trees. Dust clouds met ash clouds and choked what air remained. Surviving Krell on the ground ran without direction. They climbed broken walls. They hid in caves that grew too hot. They called for help on broken radios. No help came. The planet itself turned against them. Rivers boiled away. Lakes turned to steam. Mountains cracked and slid into valleys. The sixth impactor hit the western shield generator. The last defense grid failed completely. Now nothing stood between the world and the sky. Admiral Kai Ren watched from Erebus, far at the edge. He saw the impacts line up perfect, each one chosen to break the planet slow and sure. No waste, no mercy. The math stayed clean, 1 strike for each 1,000 lost on the outpost. The voice from Erebus kept broadcasting. "You struck a human outpost. We are the answer. This is not vengeance. This is arithmetic." The words played over every open frequency. They echoed in empty hives. They rang in shattered ships. The seventh impactor struck the polar ice and melted it fast. Floods raced toward the equator. They mixed with lava and made rivers of glowing death. The eighth hit a major fault line, and the crust shifted hard. Continents moved inches in seconds. Mountains rose and fell in minutes. The ninth landed in the heart of the industrial zone. Factories exploded in chains of fire. Fuel tanks burst and fed the flames. The 10th struck the last major city still standing. It vanished under a dome of white heat. A direct hit from a drone. The bridge filled with smoke and sparks. Air rushed out through holes. Crew members floated dead in zero gravity. He stared at the screen as the 11th impactor fell. It hit the equator dead center. The planet groaned loud enough to hear across space. The core shook and sent waves through the mantle. More volcanoes woke. More land sank. The 12th impactor followed and broke the last stable plate. The world cracked like an egg. In 11 minutes, the surface died. The green turned black. The gold turned red. The air burned away to thin poison. Temperatures stayed above 400 degrees. No water remained liquid. No plant lived. No animal breathed. The billions who walked the planet became ash and memory. The hive stood empty shells. The rings lay in pieces across the void. Vexthar sent his final words before the bridge went dark. They were waiting. His voice sounded weak and small. It carried to the few Krell ships still alive in the outer system. Felt ice in their blood. The War Master who laughed at humans now understood too late. The soft prey had teeth, hidden deep. The drones finished their hunt. They returned to Nyx Bays, quiet and empty. The impactors had done their work. No more needed to fall. The planet spun slow now. A dead rock glowing faint in the dark. Smoke covered the atmosphere like a thick shroud. No light broke through. No life stirred below. Erebus, Nyx, and Thanatos held position a moment longer. The Admiral looked at the ruined world. He felt no joy, no sadness, only the quiet of a job done right. The casualty list from Epsilon Verge stayed in his mind. 8,741 names. One world paid in full. The scale balanced. The rule held. The 3 ships turned as one. They powered drives and slipped back into hyperspace lanes. No message followed. No flag waved. They left the Krell system empty, except for the burning grave that once held their heart. Surviving Krell fleets far away received the message. Last signals. They saw the recordings of fire and ash. They heard the voice that called it arithmetic. Fear spread fast through their ranks. Officers who once boasted now spoke in whispers. Crews who sang victory songs fell silent. The Dominion that ruled with claws now learned what prey could do when pushed. The galaxy would hear the tale soon. Ships would carry the story to every corner. Traders would whisper it in ports. Diplomats would write it in secret files. Species that mocked humans before would look at their own worlds and wonder. The phrase 1 for 1,000 would appear in talks. It would carry weight now. It would carry fear. On the dead world, silence ruled. No wind moved the ash. No rain fell to wash the scars. Only the cold stars watched. The planet turned alone, a warning carved in fire and stone. The Krell who struck first paid the price. The humans who answered paid nothing extra. The math stayed simple and exact. The end came quiet after the roar. Waited for the next lesson. They struck a human outpost. Minutes later, their homeworld was annihilated. The 3 ships slipped away from the burning system like ghosts leaving a grave. Erebus, Nyx, and Thanatos moved smooth and quiet back into the dark lanes of hyperspace. Their engines hummed low. No victory cheers filled the bridges. No flags waved in triumph. The crews sat at stations and watched stars stretch into lines again. They felt the weight of what they did, but no one spoke of pride or guilt. The job stayed finished. That was enough. Admiral Kai Ren stood alone in his ready room on Erebus. He pulled up the casualty file from Epsilon Verge again. 8,741 names scrolled slow across the screen. Each name carried a face, a job, a short life cut short. He read them once more. Scientists who studied quiet stars, engineers who kept lights burning, families who laughed in small domes. He closed the file and locked it away. The scale balanced now. One side paid in full. The galaxy word began to spread. The first messages came from Krell ships that escaped the outer rim. They sent bursts on open channels. Pictures showed a world turned to ash and fire. Videos captured the impacts. The voice from Erebus played over every feed. You struck a human outpost. We are the answer. This is not vengeance. This is arithmetic. Traders heard it first, then diplomats, then whole species. In neutral ports, aliens gathered around screens. They watched the recordings in silence. Some turned away, some stared hard. The Krell who once walked tall now looked small. Their claws shook when they spoke of home. Their voices dropped to whispers. The Dominion that ruled with terror now carried fear instead. On a trade station near the core, a lizard-like merchant from the Zethi Collective leaned close to his friend. He spoke low. They hit one small human place and lost their whole world in minutes. The friend nodded slow. Humans do not fight wars. They solve problems with math. Equals one homeworld. No more, no less. The word spread fast. They became a new rule in quiet talks. Ancient powers reopened old files. The Vorath Empire pulled records from dusty vaults. They read about human deterrence from long ago. The phrase, 1 for 1,000, appeared in red ink. It carried notes from old wars. Humans never conquered. They punished. They left worlds empty when pushed too far. The Vorath leaders closed the files and ordered new sensors pointed at human space. No one wanted to test the math again. On Terra, life moved calm as always. People walked streets under blue skies. Children played in parks. Ships landed and took off. Markets stayed busy. No crowds gathered. No alarms sounded. The cascade system worked silent. It kept the peace by staying hidden. Most humans never knew the outpost died. Most never learned a world burned in reply. The few who knew stayed quiet. They understood the cost and accepted it. A small team returned to Epsilon Verge. They landed among the ruins. Blackened metal lay everywhere. Ash covered the ground. No bodies remained. Only silence greeted them. They built a new structure. Not a research station, not a fuel depot, a simple black obelisk, tall and plain. It carried one message on repeat, the same words the Krell heard. You struck a human outpost. We are the answer. This is not vengeance. This is arithmetic. Captain Elena Voss earned a place on the Wall of the Fallen in Sol Nexus. Her name sat beside thousands of others, etched in stone under soft light. People passed it daily. Some touched the letters, some just nodded. The wall reminded everyone what waited behind the calm face of humanity. Push too hard, and the answer came fast and final. Surviving Krell scattered across their old colonies. They tried to rebuild. They spoke of revenge in dark rooms, but fear stopped them cold. They saw the recordings too many times. They heard the voice too often. Their fleets stayed docked. Their claws stayed folded. Grew up hearing stories of the day the sky burned. They learned one lesson early: never strike first at humans. Other species took note too. The gentle Lyrans who traded songs stopped joking about human weakness. The fierce Draconi who loved battle looked at their own worlds and felt cold. The Council of Stars met in secret. They added new clauses to old treaties. Words about humans, words about limits. No one argued, no one laughed. The galaxy changed without a shot fired after the first 11 minutes. Years passed slow. The obelisk on Epsilon Verge stood untouched. Ships flew past and read the message. They flew on without stopping. The black stone became a marker, a warning carved in silence. No one claimed the ruins. No one rebuilt the outpost. It stayed empty, a scar left for all to see. Admiral Wren retired to a quiet house by the sea. He watched waves roll in each day. He thought about the names on his screen. He thought about the voice he sent. He slept sound at night. Balanced. He carried no regret. On a distant colony, a young human girl asked her father about the old stories. He told her simple words. We do not seek war. We do not run from it. When someone breaks the rule, we answer clear and final. She nodded and looked at the stars. She felt safe under them. The galaxy stayed large, but humans stayed ready. The Krell who lived on remembered the day their home died. They taught their children to speak soft around humans. They avoided human ships. They traded careful and kept distance. Pride turned to caution. Strength turned to watchfulness. The Dominion shrank small. It never rose again. The 3 ships that answered the call went back to hidden berths. They waited quiet for the next time, if it ever came. Engineers checked systems. Crews trained in silence. The Cascade waited too. It slept deep, but woke fast when needed. The galaxy turned on. Stars burned steady. Worlds spun quiet. Stories spread slow. The tale of the Outpost and the lost Homeworld became legend. It carried one clear truth. Humans looked soft until pushed. Then the answer came fast, brutal, exact. No mercy, no second chance, just arithmetic. The end stayed written in ash and stone. The balance held. The rule lived on. The stars watched silent. They knew what waited, if anyone forgot.